Hi there everybody. On today's video I have this mini one 2007 and I'm gonna be replacing the rear brake pads and the discs. Now don't forget to open the brake fluid reservoir before removing the pads. So once you get the wheel off, since we're going to be removing the disc, we need to get the caliper off, as well as the this frame here in which the caliper sits. So I'm going to remove the caliper which holds the pads in there. And to do that, we have two 13mm bolts that we need to undo. One of them is this one, which I already undone. The other one is this one here. So I have a 13mm socket, and this is a 15mm, which I'm just gonna put in here. Okay, we're also going to be replacing the sensor, which sits right here. Okay, so I'm just going to pull the caliper out now. Okay, that's the sensor there that's just come off the pad. Okay, with the caliper out of the way, we can take the pads off. As you can see, this pad is a lot thinner than the other side. It's been there a long time, and it's all a little bit corroded. Okay, now I'm going to remove this this frame here with a 16mm bolt. Those bolts are located just behind so there will be one in here and another one just at the top of that, which is not visible in the camera, but so I've already loosened those. They were not tight at all. Okay, once we get that off, we need to remove this bolt here. Now, in order to do that, either you can undo this before you remove the caliper, and get somebody to press the brake for you, and then you undo it, or you can wedge the screwdriver in there against the back here, against the back frame, and then undo this. That's a T50. And then the whole disc will just come out. So I've got the new brake pads here. Rear, that's the part number. And that's the part number for the disc I'm going to be using. Now this is the new disc here. And before I put it, I'm just going to give it a little brush over with this paper here. And just give this area a little clean. Very small amount of copper grease. Okay, with that tightened, we can go ahead and refit the frame, which are the two 16mm bolts. And also what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to remove the sensor. Now this sensor, it's plugged in just behind the we might be able to see just where the sensor is plugged in, and it's not the blue one, but it's the one next to it. That is the cable that runs along there. So we need to get that off its mounting and just unplug it. Now we need to wind the caliper back to fit the new pads in, and we need one of these tools. This engages into the piston, and then we have to wind it. It's not the easiest of jobs, but if we get that in there, once it's in there, I'm just using this screwdriver to hold the caliper. We then need to turn this, and as this turns, the piston is also turning and is winding back in. And we need to adjust this as we go along because it gets loosens up as the piston goes in. Okay. That's pretty much how we need to wind this caliper back in there. It needs to turn to go in. I'm just gonna go ahead and do that now. Okay, now I'm in the process of fitting this. So I put the top bolt back on here. That's where the bolt goes. And the other bolt goes down here. You just need to line this up. And get that in there. Okay, we're gonna tighten those, and then we're gonna fit the caliper with the pads. So, like I said before, I use this to get this piston back in there by turning this as such. Now, as you can see, this rubber also turns when you turn the piston. So occasionally you need to go back a little bit just to let it settle, otherwise it could get a bit damaged. I put a little bit of WD-40 to help the rotation, but as we can see, that dust cover there, it rotates with the piston, but you can get it back to normal by going back a little bit. But that piston is pretty much gone in, and we're gonna tighten these two bolts at the back. Then we can get the this metal little pad mountings in here, back in there. And the new pads will be sitting in here. Like so. Okay, that needs to go in there, and then we're gonna get the sensor back in here. Just one thing to note when you fit your pads is that this side, this pad here won't take on the sensor bit, so you have to make sure you get the right side in place for the sensor. So that's got a little mounting area for the sensor, and this side doesn't. So if you were to put this side here, then your sensor won't fit. Okay, now I'm gonna remove that that sensor. So from here is fairly easy. You just have to follow it all the way to the back and disconnect it. Okay, so the sensor is just sitting at the top where I showed you earlier on. If you get it off that mount, you can get it here and unplug it. Okay, to unplug it, just press that bit there. And then we can just go ahead and remove that. Okay, my video camera ran out of battery, so just to finish off the last bits here, we've tightened the two bolts that are in there. Those are the two 16mm that hold this mount on. We've put this little metal springs here that hold the pads in place, and we've got the sensor, and just remember where this bits click on, so the sensor goes back in there, and it actually sits back there, and it's the white one. And again, just follow the cable and place it in wherever it came out of. Now we've got the piston back in. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put a little bit of copper grease on the pads. Okay, so what's left to do is to get the caliper back on there. And then we get the bolts back in here. So normally you get a couple of new bolts with the kit, with the pad kit, but that applies if you're changing only the pads and not the discs, because if you're changing only the pads you only need to remove one of these on each side. Because you can swing this caliper it swings either up or down. But anyway, we'll get this, so we're gonna refit this, we're gonna tighten them. So that's the 13 mil, and we'll hold it here with the 15. We can also get this sensor and push it into the we can get the sensor and put it in the slot of the pad. Now we just need to be a little bit careful when we push these, because they tend to snap. The little plastic here on the side snaps, so it just needs to go in the little hole of the pad. Basically this is the pad and it's gonna go in that, in here. I'm gonna do it once I have my two hands free. So that's all left to do. Tighten this. They don't really go in too tight. Tighten those, get the sensor on. This one's already tight, and that's pretty much it. So I hope this video helps. The other side is exactly the same procedure, but the other side doesn't have a sensor, so perhaps slightly easier. So anyway, hope this video helps, and thanks for watching.